Sarah Mitchell had built her empire brick by brick, deal by deal and sacrifice by sacrifice. At 38, she was the kind of woman who walked into boardrooms and made men twice her age nervous. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of small moments to change lives, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness True Stories. Also, tell us in the comments where in the world are you watching from. She wore her success like armor, polished and impenetrable, and she liked it that way. So when her doctor told her she needed rest or her body would force it upon her, she reluctantly packed a single bag and drove to the smallest, quietest beach town she could find on the map, a place called Marin Cove, where nobody knew her name and nobody cared about quarterly earnings. She arrived on a Tuesday, checked into a modest hotel, and told herself 3 days was all she needed to recharge before returning to her real life. On her first morning, she walked down to the shore early, coffee in hand. Heels traded for flat sandals that felt strange on her feet, and she found her favorite spot on a flat rock overlooking the water. That was when she heard the boy. He was perhaps 5 years old, round-cheeked and fearless, running straight into the shallow, waves with his arms stretched wide, like he was greeting an old friend. Sarah watched him with something between amusement and envy, that kind of unfiltered joy she had not felt in years. Standing a few feet behind the boy, close enough to catch him but far enough to let him be free, was a man. Tall, unhurried, with sand on his jeans and a quiet smile on his face that seemed to belong there permanently. He was not watching his phone. He was just watching his son. Sarah found herself staring. The man glanced over and caught her eyes, and instead of looking away, he nodded pleasantly. "Enjoying the view?" he asked, and there was nothing teasing about it. Just a simple, friendly question. Sarah straightened instinctively, the way she did before presentations. "The water is beautiful," she said, as if she needed to justify herself. "I meant the morning," he said gently, turning back to the boy. "It's a good one." His name was Daniel Reyes, and she learned this gradually. The way you learn things at a beach, slowly, without agenda. His son was named Leo, and Leo decided within 10 minutes that Sarah was his new best friend because she had a shiny watch that reflected light on the sand. Daniel apologized for his son's boldness, but Sarah found herself sitting cross-legged on the sand, helping. Leo built a crooked lighthouse, something she had not done, something playful and purposeless, in longer than she could. Remember, they met at the beach the next morning, and the morning after that. Daniel was a carpenter who had moved to Marin Cove after his wife passed away 2 years earlier, choosing the quiet town over the loud city, so Leo could grow up with space and air, and neighbors who waved. He spoke about his life without complaint, without performance, with the calm honesty of someone who had already been through the worst and come out changed but intact. Sarah was used to men who wanted to impress her. Daniel simply wanted to make sure Leo had sunscreen on. That difference undid her completely. By the end of the week, she had extended her stay without fully understanding why. She joined them for evening walks along the pier and simple dinners where Leo narrated his entire day with dramatic detail, and Daniel listened like every word mattered, because to him it did. Sarah felt something opening in her chest, a door she had bricked over long ago, and it frightened her even as it warmed her. But fear was something Sarah had always defeated by walking toward it, and so she stayed, and slowly she became part of their small, unhurried world. Weeks passed. She worked remotely when she had to, but she put her phone down more than she ever had. She learned that Leo was afraid of thunder and that Daniel would sit by his bed and tell stories until the storm passed. She learned that Daniel woke at 5 to work in his shop before Leo woke, so the days could belong entirely to his son. And she began to understand deeply and uncomfortably that she would never be first in this man's life, and that this was not a flaw in him, but the most beautiful thing about him. It was that realization that sent her running. One morning she told Daniel she had to go back, that her company needed her, that this had been a lovely break, but real life was calling. He looked at her steadily and said, "Take care of yourself, Sarah," and meant it without bitterness. And that quiet grace hurt more than anger would have. She threw herself back into work, back into boardrooms and late nights and the clean, predictable reward of professional victory. But the emptiness she felt was different now, heavier, because she knew what she was missing and she had chosen to leave it. 3 months later, on a rainy Thursday, she sat in her office on the 40th floor, looking at city lights, and realized that all her life she had been waiting to be someone's whole world, not understanding that being chosen every day, even a second, even beside a child's needs and a father's devotion, was its own profound and rare kind of love. She drove back to Marin Cove on a Saturday morning. She found Daniel at the pier with Leo, who spotted her first and ran to her shouting her name like she had never left. Daniel looked at her, unhurried as ever, and smiled. "Staying this time?" he asked. "If that's all right," she said. He nodded, handed her Leo's little backpack to carry, and the three of them walked together along the water. Imperfect and unhurried and whole, Sarah finally understood that love was not about being someone's priority above all else. It was about showing up, choosing to stand beside someone in their real life, with all its weight and wonder, and finding that in doing so, you had finally quietly come home. If this story touched your heart, please show some love to Kindness True Stories. Hit like, share this with someone who needs to read it today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss a story that reminds you what truly matters. Your support means the world to us.